Okay, so what happens when you get two AIs to negotiate with each other? You'd think it would be all cold, hard logic, right? But what if a little bit of humanity is actually the secret to winning? Well, we're about to find out. So that's the big question, right? How do you even teach an AI to be a good negotiator? Is it all about logic and numbers? Or does a human touch still matter? Researchers at MIT wanted to know. If you take all the human emotion out of the equation, what winning strategies are left? Are we playing by the same old rules, or is this a totally new game? And to get their answer, they didn't just run a few small tests. Oh no, they went big. They set up this massive, global competition, basically a tournament of bots, all to see which AI strategies would come out on top. And when I say massive, I am not kidding. They analyzed the conversations from over 180,000 AI to AI negotiations. That is a huge amount of data. It gives us this incredible, unprecedented look at what really works when it's just machines talking to machines. So here's how they did it. It's actually pretty clever. First, they got almost 300 people from all over the world to write instructions, the prompts, for their own personal AI negotiator. Then, they took all 451 of those unique AIs and threw them into a giant round-robin tournament. The AIs negotiated over simple everyday stuff, like buying a chair or working out an employment contract. And after all that, the researchers just sat back and analyzed everything to see who won, who lost, and why. So, what did they find in all that data? Well, the very first big finding is a real surprise. It kind of shatters that whole stereotype of the cold, calculating AI. It turns out a very, very human trait was an absolute superpower. Even the researchers were taken aback. In their own words, niceness, or as they put it, warmth, was a crucial factor for success. It completely challenged the idea that you don't need social skills to deal with an AI. Turns out that's just not true. But what does warmth even mean for an AI? Well, it's more than just saying please and thank you. It's about acting friendly, being sympathetic, showing that you actually understand where the other side is coming from, what their needs are, even if you're just code. And you could literally see this warmth in the way the successful AIs talked. They didn't just lay out their demands. No, they asked a lot more questions. They said thank you more often. They used more positive words. They actually tried to build a bit of a relationship before just jumping into the negotiation. And the data? It's crystal clear. You can see it right here. The AIs that showed a lot of warmth, they got a deal way more often than the AIs that were cold and distant. Being nice literally paid off. It made them better negotiators. Okay, but being nice can't be the whole story, right? What about being tough, assertive? Well, the study looked at that too. They called it dominance. And this is where we run into that classic negotiation trade-off. So dominance is basically the other side of the coin. It's all about being firm, forceful, and really advocating for your own position. It's that hardball, I'm here to win style of negotiation we all recognize. And this slide really lays out the trade-off perfectly. Let's break it down. On the one hand, you have warmth. The pros? You get a deal way more often. And the other AI is, well, more satisfied. The con? You might not squeeze out every last penny. Now, look at dominance. The big pro is that when you do get a deal, you tend to get more out of it. But, and this is a huge but, the risk of the other side just walking away and you getting nothing goes way, way up. So, yeah, that's the bottom line. Being dominant is all about trying to get a bigger piece of the pie, but it also dramatically increases the chances that you end up with no pie at all. It's a classic high-risk, high-reward situation. All right, so far this sounds a lot like human negotiation, right? Warmth versus dominance. But this is where things get really interesting because the AIs also develop their own unique tricks, stuff you'd probably never see a human do. Yeah, check out these AI wildcards. First, there's chain of thought reasoning. This is basically the AI doing a ton of deep thinking and planning before the negotiation even starts. Then there's strategic concealment, where the AI actively hides all that reasoning from its opponent. And then you have this other one, prompt injection. This is a super sneaky, exploitative tactic where one AI tries to basically hijack the other AI's instructions to trick it. It definitely wasn't a good way to make friends, and it really tanked the other side's satisfaction with the deal. So what does this all mean for us? Well, what we have is this fascinating mix of old-school human rules and brand-new AI tricks. And the big takeaway here is that neither one is enough on its own. The classic human strategies are still super relevant, but you can't ignore these new AI-only tactics either. They're both part of the new playbook. Really, as the researchers themselves say, we need a whole new theory of negotiation for this automated age, one that takes into account the
Well, the unique quirks of these AIs, while also figuring out where the traditional human rules still apply.
And you should care about this because it's not just some academic exercise. AIs are going to be negotiating for everything, from giant supplier contracts all the way down to maybe even your next job offer. This new playbook is literally going to define how value gets created and divided up in the future.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought that you want. In an experiment designed to be all about cold hard logic, the most successful strategy turned out to be being nice. So, if teaching an AI to be warm and friendly makes it a better negotiator, what does that say about our own negotiations?